Wait. How do I know if it's streaming from the right sources?
You're live now.
We're live. No source though. So, oh man, gotta love it. Let's see. And we're gonna record here too. Okay. I'm gonna assume that we've got the right sources going on here. Get this popping. Yeah. I'm gonna tweet and say we're on. This is happening. Okay, so you never know what's gonna happen when you're going live and you're producing your own stuff. But I'm excited to be here. I'm here today with Dr. Nan Johnson, and we're back episode of Everything She Knows. This is episode 4, y'all. Last week we had Ryan Triggs on here. We talked about success. What does success mean? We talked about what some of the obstacles are in the way of people who are trying to find success. We talked about all of the different challenges that we see manifest for people of color, especially when we're thinking about our responsibilities and how do we want to take care of other people and our families and all the struggles that come along with that. And so if you haven't checked that out, definitely go and check that out. Today, we are going to have a conversation about then versus now. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk a little bit about setting that scene between the then versus now. I have my own personal historian here, Dr. Nan. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, how are you?
You can look at the camera too.
Hello. I just want to say thank you, and really glad to have the opportunity to speak with Aniyia regarding some of my experiences.
Yeah, and I love how formal she's being, but I think really, let's be real, like I forced her into it. And I'm grateful that she let me do that because today's guest is my grandmother, Dr. Nan Johnson, and she is a very accomplished woman. The show is called Everything She Knows. It felt only appropriate that I bring on with me someone who taught me almost everything that I know. Dr. Nan has 40 years of experience in sales, business development, business education, and job training. She was an organizer for the American Federation of Teachers in Washington, D.C. in the 60s. She taught at Prince George's Community College in Maryland in the 70s. She was the executive vice president of a chain of hundreds of schools called the Balin Institute in the 80s. And she bought and ran her own hair school, as well as 2 hair salons in Philadelphia in the 90s, which was a family business that I grew up in, by the way. She was on the National Association of Trade and Technical Schools in the 80s and the 90s, which, for people who don't know what that means, it's the body that gives accreditation to trade and technical schools. And accreditation is basically how your school degree is officially recognized by federal, state, and city regulatory bodies. It's how you get a degree, and it's officially a degree. She was the first person in the United States to combine cosmetology and barber education under one roof in the same school with Donahue's PhD, which was the school that she started when I was a kid. And since I'd say like from the 2000s to the nows, the 2020s, she's been providing tech training to school districts. She's been providing business development, accounting, and tax services to her former students, people who work for her family, including me. Dr. Nan, bar none, was at least half of the reason why Tinsel, the company that I started a few years ago, was able to squeeze its modest funding to get ship out a luxury hardware product, which is a story we'll tell in another time. But, okay. Did I miss anything?
I think you pretty much got it.
Yeah, I covered the basics.
As I was sitting here, I was thinking of some other things that were done in between. But
what would you add? Is there anything you would add in there?
I think we pretty much covered a good bit of it. The only thing I do want to say is that during the 80s, I was working on the business development, and there was a young Black couple in Atlanta, and what you see now with Walmart delivering groceries and shopping and picking up for people, that was their idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I helped them to develop their plan, and everyone was saying, no, it won't work. But I was thinking there is such a thing as sometimes being ahead of the times. And so now just about every grocery store shop
is
and
doing
delivers for you. Yeah.
Okay, ahead of its time. So I feel like I know that I really wanted, there's so much. And I know like we only have, and now we have less than an hour because of technical difficulties. I'm sorry it took us a while to get online, y'all. But like, can I just like start this off by asking a broad strokes question, which like, if you could say objectively, are we better off now than we were then? What would you say? Yes or no? Is that a yes or no question?
No, that's not a yes or no question. And it's not a yes or no question because I primarily am not in a yes or no part of my life.
Ooh.
I am in a part of my life where I have found that there's no one answer to anything.
Yeah.
That it's just, there's layers. And sometimes when you start peeling away the layers, and you see another question pop up and another question pop up. But to try to answer that question as closely as I can, because I'm an old teacher and I prefer people answer the question. So I'll try to answer it as closely as I can with a yes or no. And I'm going to say yes, no, maybe. Because in
all of them.
Well, because in some areas we are, in some we are not. With the election of President Obama, everybody would clearly say yes. But then now, with what we're going through, it seems like we've been set back 50 years. So yes, no, it all depends. And we have more Black millionaires than we had then, but we still got more people unemployed.
That's true.
So you see my reason for peeling back the layers and saying that I don't know if that's a yes or no.
It's complicated. It's complicated. Okay, well, let's get into some things. Let's talk about a little bit granular, because I feel like I want to start with education, because I know how important education has been. At least I'm going to talk about it from the lens of how I've experienced it, being your granddaughter through the 30 some odd years that I've been on earth. Like I know that you are and have been, we just went through a highlights of your credentials, a lifelong educator. We can't talk about education without talking about what you dubbed Camp Redbug, which was, basically when we were kids, me and my cousins would go down to North Carolina to my grandmother's house, and in our summer vacations, we would be doing the work that was to prepare us for the next year of school that was coming up. You would go to the shops where they sold all the teachers' materials and like get all the workbooks and like make sure everybody was ahead of the game before they like went into class that year. And thinking about, you've always had computers and technology all around you. My entire life, I was like very fortunate to be a kid that grew up around computers, like when you had to type command prompts in to get Windows to run, and like that you used to like make me do Mavis Beacon typing software and all of those things. Like education has always been a really important part of that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to name another thing that I just remembered too. Thinking about also when I was growing up, there's a lot of hair shows in my childhood too. I remember being at the Bronner Brothers show in Atlanta every year. My job was to give out flyers. You were teaching workshops to hairstylists to tell them how to make sure they were running their business and how to keep their books. So talk to me about your relationship with education.
Well, my relationship with education has been one that I can say has made me wealthy.
Okay. Elaborate.
Because I like to think that because of my education and what I know and being around educators and educating my children and grandchildren, I like to think that I was able to get everything like a middle class person could get and have and show and do. And as you said, with having a Windows computer, actually I had an Apple computer, personal computer before Windows, and then remember when Apple went down, and then all of a sudden Windows took over. Yes, and my first Windows computers I purchased at Macy's in Atlanta, and it was $4,000.
What? Where did you get
Yeah.
$4,000 to purchase a
Yeah.
computer?
I saved it
Yeah.
because remember
For that purpose, or you were like, this is my moment, I'm gonna make this investment?
Well, no, I had always wanted a computer because when I took the computer classes at school, I remember always wanting a computer because back in the day, see, they didn't have all of these labs that you have now.
Yeah.
And back in the day, it was probably in a lab, it might have been 10 computers for one site.
Yeah.
And so if you really wanted to get on the computers, you had to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to run over to the computer lab before anybody got there.
Yeah.
And-
Good pass.
Yeah, and so I
Hard
wanted to have a computer at home, so I didn't have to get up there early.
Right.
I was lazy. I
Yeah.
didn't want to have to get up there early to get on the computer. And so I made up my mind, and I had kind of started pricing things, and you're looking at $25,000, $50,000. You're looking at $250,000, and so I decided one day I was going to buy one. So when I saw a $4,000 price tag as opposed to 25, 50, 100, or 250, sold.
You were like, I'm in.
Yeah.
How many computers do you own today? Do you know?
Probably I'd say about 14 at work and probably about 6 or 8 that don't. And I'm in the process of getting
Rid of some.
Yeah.
I'm like, that sounds about right. Like, I know what your office looks like.
The only reason that I haven't gotten rid of some of the older ones is because I still got some of those old floppies back in the day, and they have information on them and things that people ask me every day with little templates that I made that I can just
look. I think.
No,
I was gonna say, sorry. I was gonna say we might have to explain for some younger people what a floppy disk is. Because a lot of people don't know what floppy disks are. Before there were USBs, before there were CDs and DVDs, there were. Wait, was there one before that? No, I think floppy disk was before CDs.
The floppy was on the IBM, and also it wasn't called PC. It was an IBM. A few years later, that's when the regular PCs came out. But it's about the size of a regular disk. Like it was No, that's the small ones. I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the like big ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it really was floppy.
I was on just like the edge of those getting cycled out before there were zip disks were a thing too. So many ways to store your memory, and now it's like, you can put terabytes on a flash drive, which is wild. Anyway, sorry to go back though. I want to circle back to your relationship with education. So technology always clearly a really key part. This was it sounds like a mechanism for you to really find wealth and success in your life. Is that right?
I started school when I was 4 years old. I started Catholic school when I was 4 years old. And
you started school early for that time
yes.
too. Yes.
And because they didn't have kindergarten, and my mother thought they had kindergarten and they didn't. And they told her as long as I behaved myself and acted the way I was supposed to, I could stay. So also school, I always liked school. I just loved two things I loved was school and the library.
Yeah.
And I still love bookstores and school and libraries.
I like the library too.
And so and if you recall, I always took you guys to the bookstores. I don't know, but
that's true. I remember when I was a kid. This was when we were spending a lot of time downtown for the Donahue's, the salon that was on Broad Street. And I would always go to the Barnes and Noble that was on on Chestnut or Walnut. Mm-hmm. And I would just go to the kids section and just hang out there for an afternoon, just reading books and whatever else, just farting around. But spent a lot of time in bookstores when I was a kid.
And so that's, I guess, education was my outlet, but it also just opened the doors. Education for me was like being a kid in a candy store. It always has been and probably always will.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay, so tell me a little bit about because I think that where I'm coming around is technology, books, education as a whole as really representing something that is, I'm gonna come up with my own kind of interpretation here, a tool for mobility, right? Like I know that you were talking to me earlier about kind of this up, would you call it in, up, and out?
In, up, and out.
Tell me about in, up, and out.
In, up, and out. And I always encourage all of my students to constantly think of this in their head. In means that you look for a job, you get in, you learn as much as you can in terms of lateral. Then you move up and you learn as much as you can. Once you get as far as you can, you get out, but you get out to something better.
Mm-hmm. Like, so leaving
in,
that
up and out concept.
Got you. So like that final one, leaving that job to like find the next level up in another company.
Yes.
Instead of like some like being maybe like hitting a ceiling at where you are at the place that you're at. Okay. And now like, okay, let's bring in like a little bit
or even if you can't do that in the job, and that's what a lot of people do, a lot of young people do these days, and a lot of employers saying they can't find good help because
they don't stick around.
Thank you.
But I mean, there's no incentive
they
to,
look
right?
up and they get out.
Well, there's not really a lot of incentive to.
Thank
So like,
you.
if we're gonna have a then versus now conversation, like, I feel like there was a time like back in the day where you could come in and get the mailroom job and like become the CEO or whatever. Like that was like the American dream version of it.
It was, and that was also the preference because that was the preference because they wanted to know, your board members wanted to know that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And now they just want to know that you're going to make some money. And in some instances, they really don't care how. In some instances, it's okay if some of these corporations break the law, as long as they make money. But again, that's a topic for another day.
I mean, is it though? Like,
I don't want to dig myself.
I just kind of want to like, can you give me just a little taste of like, how does that make you feel? Like when you think about that and what work used to represent before and what it does now, like, is it still fair?
It's not fair, and it does not bother me that much because I'm not out there. But what I try to tell the young people that I come in contact with, I try to help them to navigate those types of systems. Because while we know that a lot of things are not fair, we are constantly, as a people, infiltrating this system.
You mean Black people?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And as you,
because it's the only way you can get in sometimes.
And as you infiltrate the system, you really can't let them know how you really feel, because boom, we'll be out. So we've always had to have dual expectations and had to live this dual life. And I'm not so sure. I've heard some people say, well, I don't want to do that because they don't have to. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have to, don't. But there are some people who do transcend it for whatever reason the system lets them. For the most part, we really do have to kind of.
So then I feel like that's actually a really good transition into like back to education, like, because in fact, there's a Democratic debate tonight, and I'm not going to go down in the politics lane, but I know that, one of the, candidates' platform, a couple, like there is about education, it's about college. So 1, should everyone go to college? 2, should college be free? From someone who has their PhD, like what are your thoughts?
First of all, I do believe that everyone should go to college. However, let's define college. College can be job training, college can be the 4-year university, college can be an associate's degree. But to say everyone needs to go to college and get a 4-year degree, no, because they have job training programs that pay $70,000 and $80,000 a year. Working with organizations like Google and Facebook.
Yeah, so like
people who have certain certifications, and then they have, and to get those certifications, it might only cost $20,000 or $25,000. That's it, as opposed to going to a 4-year university and having to pay $80,000 to $100,000, which is kind of low for the most part. But so. I say people need to be educated past high school, and we need to decide what that is. But now I always told my students, if you first of all, if you want to get an associate's degree, get an associate's degree and get to work. Go to work so they can pay for their college and then continue their education beyond that, because a lot of jobs would pay while you're attending college.
Although that's like going away too. But like before I get into that though, I feel like I want to kind of round out what you're saying. So it sounds like what you're saying is that we should broaden the definition of what like college means, right? Like beyond, because when I hear college, I'm definitely assuming we're talking about like 4-year bachelor's degree, master's degree, like something that is at a minimum a 4-year like bachelor's of something.
But in most school districts, that has changed.
The definition of college?
Yes.
Okay.
In most school districts now, it is 2-year job training, 4-year and beyond. So, and now I understand that that some youngsters go into job training, and then they have a program where when they graduate high school, they have an associate's degree.
I think I've heard of something like that actually.
So I'll say it is changing, and I'm sure, especially in most of your larger cities now, and even in rural areas, because the rural area where I finally retired, I do a lot of work with the robotics program, and they have, and I saw the scale where they have 2-year, 4-year, then job training, and then post grad. So in your definition, we are including trades, so like trade schools. Yes.
Okay, trade schools, which like you started and ran a trade school, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But would you consider that to be college by your definition?
It is college.
Got you. Okay. Now, second question: should it be free?
Yes. We are a country.
Period. Point blank. Period.
You see, we are a country that put,
I'm with it. I'm definitely with it.
Big dollars into bullets.
Bullets. Oh yeah.
A bullet can cost thousands of dollars, at best hundreds of dollars. And you mean to tell me we can't or don't want to educate our youngsters? I got a problem with that. A lot of individuals who went to college are so much in debt. What I did, because some of my students, I do their taxes and everything. So one day, what I did was I asked her how much did she have in student loans. She told me how much she had in student loans. I think she makes about $50,000 a year. We divided that by her salary and everything and how much she was making, and she was barely making $10 an hour. So you see, we really have to.
That's rough.
Yes, and so what I'm saying, and I guess that's maybe I shouldn't stretch it like that, but what I'm saying and thinking, so I went to college, and all I'm gonna make is minimum wage.
Yeah, right. And you're walking away saddled with all the debt of
Thank
college
you.
on top
And
of
so,
that, right? Yeah.
Right, and so yes, we need to find a way. And I will say to all of the older people, let's listen to the young people. Let's start listening to them.
You hear that? You heard it here first.
Let's
listen
to
to the young people.
Because I say to you, listen to me.
Oh yeah.
Because if we take what we know and give it to you, and take what you want to do and let you massage it and learn from it, you'll be so much further ahead of the game. Because again, as I have finally will say, I'm at a point in my life where everything's a contradiction. And so, I always say to you, choose the direction and the contradictions will go away.
What does that mean though? Everything is a contradiction.
Because
what are you thinking about when you say that?
Everything is a contradiction. If for instance, college education. You need to go to college and get an education.
Gotcha.
You go to college and get an education instead of coming out and being able to make more money, you're in debt.
Yeah.
Contradiction.
Gotcha.
Okay. Just that in itself is messed up, because this earth and world that we leave our young people, they should be left better off.
I mean, preach, right? Like I'm, oh, if only. Like that is definitely a world I would like to live in.
And I may not.
I feel like that shouldn't be controversial. You know what I mean?
But it is, because when I'm watching the debates and even some of the journalists, if I could reach through the screen and just go like that, because they are saying free stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Free education, free medical care, free this, free that. Well, goodness, if 10% of the people own all of the wealth, if you don't give it to me, there's nothing
where's
left.
it supposed to come from?
And so again, contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean about contradiction, because I cannot a lot of times and will not just say, oh, this is the answer. What I found is that answer has many layers, and when you start peeling them away, sometimes it gets even more complicated when it shouldn't be.
Right.
When we really know it's not that complicated.
So let me ask you this,
and the banks are the ones who make the majority of the money off of student loans, because they will loan the students money, charge interest, and then when they charge the interest, if the student defaults or don't pay the loan, the government gives the bank the money.
The government gives the bank the money, and I don't know when it was that they passed all of the laws that basically even put student debt in a different class that you can't get rid of it, right?
Yeah, like
that they can garnish your wages.
Yeah, it's like taxes
for that, which I think is really jacked up. So did you graduate from school, your schooling? Actually, do you want to talk, because you have a PhD. I think it's really an interesting story of how you got that. But has student debt ever been something you had to worry about?
No.
And why not?
Because I graduated early, and my mother was registered nurse. She worked at Tufts University School of Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'd be down there all the time doing little stuff, so everybody got to know me. And Dr. Ryan, I'll never forget, and she told my mother, she said, they're trying to get more colored people into
what they called it back then.
Yeah. They're trying to get more colored people into these programs, and we really do need a lot of colored nurses. And your daughter's so smart, and so we think that she'll be good for the program. Well, see, you gotta understand something. I cried the sight of my own blood.
Oh.
Always did, always will.
Yeah.
Have no qualms about it. And I told my mother yes, and then after I had graduated and it was time to go get ready to go to school, I'm like, Mama, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And she was like, Nancy, I'm gonna tell you, you want to go to college. We don't have the money to pay for it.
Mm.
If we don't have the money to pay for it, you can't go.
Mm-hmm.
So you do whatever you want to do, but I can't help you.
Yeah.
I went to Jordan Marsh in Boston, and I got me a job that summer. I made $300 and something, and $300 and something was the tuition for Northeastern.
Mm.
And I paid my tuition, and after that, I never had to pay a penny for school.
Because you got scholarships or something?
I got scholarships,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Work study. Northeastern at the time, now Northeastern is considered a Ivy League school, but at the time, Northeastern, we were in houses.
Mm-hmm.
We were in row houses, and Northeastern was considered in Massachusetts one of the worst schools.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and you got your degree from Northeastern.
I got my bachelor's from Northeastern. I was in a master's PhD program when I was working at Baylor Institute.
Yeah.
And they had
which was much later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had and that was the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
They had reciprocity with Emory. So I would go in between working, and I go and take classes there and then run back to work and close the school up. and then go home. I was so tired because my day was almost 16 hours in. And that's how I got in the master's PhD program. And I didn't get my PhD until I had retired to North Carolina.
Yeah.
And
so you were retired when you got your PhD.
Yes.
Can you explain to the audience here how one gets a PhD after they retire without like actually like going and sitting in classes?
Because I had already been in class.
Yes.
And the only thing they needed was my dissertation.
So like, was that time that you racked up over the decades? Like,
yeah, because I had more.
Like, how does it work? And like, how do I get one?
It all depends.
And the Nancy Johnson.
It all depends.
Okay.
What you really need are mentors, and I had 5.
Mm-hmm.
And they were starting Phoenix. And they wanted someone to help them write
Phoenix University.
Phoenix University.
Okay.
It was 5 of them that I knew and had met from the National Association of Trade and Technical Schools.
Right.
And they wanted someone to help them to write the curriculums and write the programs, some of them that I had already written when I was at Baylor. And I had already taken all of my classes and everything. The only thing I needed was my dissertation. Mm-hmm. And so remember the books that we used to sell at the shows?
Yeah, when you did the Bronner Brothers workshops.
That was my dissertation.
Oh, nice.
Those 5 books were my dissertation.
Yeah.
And
can you explain to people what the books were?
One was.
Well, tell them about the workshops you used to do.
Well,
we'll get into the hair school, but like, let's jump ahead for a moment.
One was salon management. Well, okay. It was management and marketing, financial operations, personnel. Okay, 3 M's. That's what it was. The 3 M's: money, management, and marketing. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the money book. Uh-huh. The management, Paul Chavis wrote, and the marketing he wrote.
But you mean Mark Chavis? Mike Chavis. Mike Chavis. I'm sorry, Mike.
Mike Chavis. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mike Chavis.
He wrote, but Mike, and Mike knows that now, he couldn't write. So I had to go back through everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wrote like a 5th grader, but he was real smart. You know, he just couldn't write. So I redid those, and then I did mine, and then I submitted that package.
And that was your dissertation?
Yes.
And they gave you your PhD?
I had already earned it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to say you didn't earn it. I'm just like, that's dope.
I had already earned it. I had enough. I had taken it.
It's like the compounded interest version of getting a PhD.
No,
instead of having to like.
Because I never had the time to write a dissertation. And I did not realize that I had already written one.
Yeah.
Not just in those 3 books. But over the years, with having written curriculum, I had already done one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you recall CompuTeach. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was in like the main line outside of Philly.
Yeah. I wrote all of the curriculum for their whole technology program. Mm-hmm. And some of the professors from Rutgers wanted to come and see the curriculum I had written because there was no written curriculum for all of Microsoft's programs. Mm. And so I think what happened is one of the professors actually, because we wouldn't give it to him, I think he signed up and took a class or something like that. So he could get the curriculum. But those are all things that I had done what I really wanted, I wanted a degree in engineering. Okay. But it was so challenging until, what's his name? One of my mentors said, "Are you crazy? Why are you going to do that? You're going to take all of these years of education that you have in your master's PhD program and start all over again in another program?" Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what I've always wanted. And so finally, you know what I said? I did it, turned it in, and it was really interesting because several of the interviewees, when I was doing my orals, they said, you know, it's really interesting when we interview you you can just tell us right off the top exact and give us the answers, and you don't stutter and you don't have to refer to a different page. But remember, I was in my 50s and all that stuff was locked in my head. So I had lived it so much until it was just easy to just bring out.
That's dope. So just to like close the bookend on that one, your PhD is in
business education.
Business education. That's right. I'm like, it doesn't not come full circle.
Yeah.
Like, what is your granddaughter doing now?
I stuck with what I knew instead of because I thought about it, and Dr. Heck said, Nancy, you're not going to go get a job in an engineering firm and make any money.
Yeah.
He says, even if you do, you're going to be well in the 60s, and who you think going to hire you? Because a lot of those courses that you're going to have to go and take over for undergrad. And, and I'm so naive. I'm like, well, I'm down here and that's okay. I don't have nothing to do. So finally, I just started putting everything together. And now that was a learning experience in itself because, as I said, I had 5 mentors. Mm-hmm. And back then, when in the early 2000s, people were using a software program called WordPerfect. Mm-hmm. And all I knew was the Microsoft program.
Right.
And so I did everything in Microsoft Word and sent it in. On our syllabus, it said it had to be done in Word.
Yeah.
I had one mentor that said, if you do it in Word and if you sent it to me in Word, you're going to have to do it in WordPerfect because I don't do Word.
Uh-huh.
I went and typed the whole darn thing over in WordPerfect and sent to him. I went and bought the WordPerfect software. And one of the things that they said that made me feel pretty good, that they were not giving no more PhDs to anyone who was not proficient in technology.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So I wanna move to the next thing because I feel like the hair business was a really big part of your life, and like we talked about how you've kind of come through these different areas of experience, but really focused on like education, helping schools and entities get accredited, organizing for teachers. Like that was really a lot of the foundational thing. And you ended up like we talked about earlier, you opened a hair school that combined cosmetology and barbering, the first in the United States. It was Donahue's was rated in the top 100 salons in the U.S. by Essence in its time. You were in the Philadelphia African American Museum. So I feel like, how did you get into the hair business? Like, why that of all of the things?
Well, because the schools that I ran, we taught civil engineering technology, electrical engineering technology, mechanical engineering technology, office technology, the medical dental assistance program, and paralegal. We always taught all of those. And the president of the school said we always wanted to do a program that taught barbering and cosmetology. Mm-hmm. But the problem was that no state in the United States would let you teach barbering and cosmetology under one roof. If you could have it right next door to each other. And even today, the barbershops and the beauty shops in a lot of cities don't allow.
Separated. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I decided, and especially from being on the accrediting commission, I knew that just to start a school from scratch, because you have to operate 2 years without accreditation. And, students will not go to a school that's not accredited because you can't get Title IV funds.
I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit different nowadays, I'd say, because people are like they do boot camps, like there's all kinds of drama around it. But actually part of where the drama arises is about the legitimacy of these programs, because there are schools that get to call themselves schools today that are not accredited, still get to charge people thousands and thousands of dollars of money, and actually even doing them in structures where after they go and get a job, they basically not garnishing their wages, but they do have to like give part of their salary back to pay what they borrowed to go to the school. And like the curriculums for these schools are not even vetted. They're not accredited at all. So I'm like, we've come a long way from the kind of rigor that you're used to, I would say. And I know that that's a thorn in a lot of people's side, but sorry, you were saying.
But we discovered that it would have probably taken, in order to just start it from scratch and do what I wanted to do, it would have probably taken about $500,000. And I had saved up about $250,000.
You saved up $250,000? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And so,
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money now.
Well, but then remember, Grandpa worked for Martha. I did not need any of that. Your dad and your uncle and them, they had all graduated from college. I was making about $80,000 a year and didn't have nothing to spend my money on, so I thought I was rich.
This was when you were the executive vice president of Galen Institute.
And so I just saved half my money because I knew I wanted to buy a school. That was it.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to buy a school that taught all of the other subjects because that was my expertise.
Yeah.
But when I saw this school, they only wanted $125,000 for it.
Yeah.
And so I just jumped at it because I said, I can take the rest of my money and add those other programs to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a barbering school, but I did add the cosmetology part to it. And then I was going to add the other subjects to it when
but you ended up,
we retired.
I was gonna say, but you also ended up like opening 2 other salons. Like, so I don't even remember what the timeline was for that, but I know that first there was the school in the Northeast and Northeast Philly, and then there was the salon on South Broad Street, and then there was a salon in Cheltenham.
Yeah, it was. And the reason that I ended up opening a salon and went to that area too was because we discovered when I was working at Galen Institute, we discovered that the barber and cosmetology schools, people paid cash for getting their hair done when they went in the door.
Yeah.
And when we owned Donahue's, I mean, it's not a lot of money, but we could pull in about $100,000 a year just off of doing hair.
Mm-hmm.
It was ours. No student loans, no money to pay back. So that helped pay for teachers and all of that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah. So it kind of created like a part of the business that fed the other parts of the business.
Yes. And then with the hair part, we know that I discovered, the black hair, people got to come every 2 weeks, whereas Caucasian hair, they can go once a month, every 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a very lucrative cash business.
Yeah. So it worked out.
Yeah.
And you did that until you retired because, my grandfather, your husband, got sick and you guys decided to retire and move to North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that started the next part of your career, right?
And then say we decided to move to North Carolina. Remember, we already had a house in North Carolina that was already paid for because we had planned on that years before we went there. So it wasn't like, okay, we had to go find a place in North Carolina. My biggest problem and weakness is that I had to always plan things out.
I mean, is that a bad thing?
Well,
as a compulsive planner, which I'm like hearing you tell these stories too, it's interesting because obviously most of this, you are telling me some stuff that I didn't know actually, but like, I'm like as much as I want to think that I'm like an original snowflake of my family, it's also just not true. Like, I feel like I've been groomed to be who I am today in a lot of ways. Like, I've done things that are different than the experiences that you have had and then my dad has had and other people in the family have had, but like,
that's called carrying the torch. And I feel that you carry the torch very well.
Was that part of your plan?
No. No, because the only thing that was part of my plan was to make sure that you guys, when you went to college, you could hold your own and that you would be able to be above the fray when it came to taking care of yourself.
That we wouldn't be in the struggle.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the struggle, but you wouldn't be.
we'd be able to keep up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have another question for you because I'm like, damn, we're rounding to the last 10 minutes. So do you think, because I'm like, there are so many people. So if I'm trying to summarize like what we're getting here, threads of the story, one thing being that it was, education was a really, really key piece, and that from the age of 4, you were kind of on this track of just like really trying to learn and also bring other people along and educate other people as you were learning.
I never tried to learn.
You never tried to learn.
It just was fun. It was always easy for me, and I did not realize that.
Yeah, I can relate. Okay, and then the other part of it.
Some people had to work real hard and study hard. I never had to. I could read a book. I could sit. Now, what I had to do was sit in the class, do the homework, and I could get decent grades. I don't know why. I don't know how. I guess some people just get it.
Yeah, which is beautiful. But like I also want to like attach that to, the journey of both you working in businesses and then ultimately creating your own businesses and using what you did and having had a successful career in working for someone else to start to really pave and design the life that you wanted. Like you bought a school that ended up being successful until you decided to put it down.
We sold the school to Gordon Phillips, and Gordon Phillips sold it to Empire Beauty Schools.
I don't know Empire, but I definitely have heard of Gordon Phillips.
Gordon Phillips is no longer. They sold it to Gordon.
Yeah. And so where I'm coming around to though is like, how should we think about job training today? I feel like we touched on it a little bit when we were talking about education, but just in terms of, it being a means for success, whatever that means to the person who's defining it, and and should everyone start a business?
Okay, let me start with that. I hate those.
Let's start with everyone start a business?
Questions.
Let's start this with the second question first. Should everyone start a business?
No.
I agree with that, actually, but you explain why you feel that way.
Because running a business is more of a psych thing.
Mm-hmm.
People who work in the business need skills, but I say that too because how I became good at doing what I do is when I worked for Baylor Institute, I did every single job that had to be done. I taught, I cleaned the toilets, I did the financial aid, I interviewed students, I substituted in the classroom, I did it all.
So this is the in, up, and out, right?
Yes.
Which also mirrors my experience working at organizations.
Because I wanted to make sure that when I owned my own business, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was going to encounter.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell people that if you're thinking of owning a business, go find somebody and work for them. Do everything that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're thinking of owning your own business, for instance, one of the things that I discovered was that, okay, if a teacher called in and you don't have a substitute, what do? Do you send the students home? Because now, for accreditation purposes, you can get in trouble and lose your accreditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to be able to go into the classroom and substitute. The bathrooms.
Were they that bad?
But the janitors swore they cleaned them every day. And you could fire the janitors and the next batch of janitors would still do it.
Wait, hold on. At the school? What janitors? I feel like...
No, at my school at Baylor Institute.
Oh, I'm like, at the hair school? Because we were definitely the janitors.
Yeah.
The family was the janitors.
And so, in other words, the reason why I say no is because people think that owning a business is a glamorous thing and you just go in and tell people what to do and people do it. Well, they don't. And you might find that when you own a business, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, that's...
And you got to get paid. So that's why I say everyone shouldn't own a business. If anything, just go get a good job and be nice to your family. And if the opportunity presents itself, be prepared for it and save for it.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing in this world like signing paychecks on payday and you don't know where the money's coming from.
As in, like, that's a good thing or that's a bad thing?
That's a bad thing.
Right. Okay.
There's nothing in this world like that. There's nothing in this world that
like terrifying kind of feeling.
Yes, that sleep at night. And thank God, when I worked at Bailing, I had to worry about those kinds of things. But I had a boss that was taking all the money, so he just went and took a loan and took some of the money out of his pocket. I used to tell him, go take some of that money out your pocket and put it in the payday employee's pocket. So you have to plan, and you have to. What we did, I never missed a payday when we owned our school. Mm-hmm. Never missed a payday. But I planned for it, and I had X amount of money set aside. And so sometimes people would come in, well, you want to buy this, and I see that computer over there. Well, oh, that's a full-fledged PC. We want to sell you a new computer. No, I got to pay my people.
So wait, hold on, because I want to ask a question. Sorry, back to it, like a then versus now. Do you think that in businesses then versus now, like, do people manage money equally as poor as they did then versus now? Have people gotten better at like doing those back end parts of
it's about the same. It's about the same. The most important thing that I found,
because you keep the books, so
was that I had to stop people from trying to sell me the latest and greatest. I had to learn to say no.
Yeah.
I had to learn that regardless of how much I needed it, regardless of my competition having it, I had to say no, because I had to stick with my plan.
Mm-hmm. And so no keeping up with the Joneses.
No.
That's a nugget of advice.
No. And for instance, I had a client that owned a school, and he drove a Jaguar. And he got very angry because he said, darn it, every time I drive my car to school, these students over here getting on my nerves. They want refunds. They want this and that. Psychology. When he drove that car, the students said, we paying for him to have a Jaguar, and we sitting over here and we don't have teachers.
Oh.
See, so
yeah, that's crazy.
So he should have drove his old raggedy car, really. I mean, because you got to be careful of appearances, because although he meant well, he felt like he worked hard, he deserved it, they didn't.
Yeah.
And every single time he did that, they would pick up the phone and call the state board and complain.
That's crazy. So, okay, we're rounding the end here. I want to like kind of end asking, one question. I know we didn't really veer too deep into politics, which I know could have been a whole thing in itself. But I do kind of want to talk a little bit about like all of these things. Like I feel like opportunity is like really a undercurrent of the conversation that we're having right now. And I think like then versus now, based on what you're saying, opportunity looks very different and maybe is shriveling up and dying on the vine a little bit. Like, is this a redeemable like thing? Can we fix that? Can we get more people either in jobs or creating businesses? And I think especially, for people who feel like they are trapped in that undertow of what is supposed to be democracy, but it is not living up to its truth. Like, can the right kind of change ultimately come?
The right kind of change is coming. Democracy has never been, and I have to be careful about saying this in mixed company, but democracy has never been what they tell us and how you read it on the Bill of Rights.
Constitution.
Yeah, the Constitution. Yeah. Democracy has never been like that. And I think that we're going through a period of crisis, but what makes me feel good about it is when I listen to these young people and see the things they want. Some of them are altruistic. And I hear some of them who have a lot of money saying, I wouldn't mind paying a few more dollars in taxes
It's true.
to get a good employee that don't have student loans that, I can work with.
Or to not be that person.
Yeah, and so I think we are going through a difficult time, but I think we have to be careful to not, in other words, there's a wall there. And someone tell me there's a wall there. All of my life, I have always felt like I'm either going to go under it, go around it, go over it, or just plain and simply just try my best to kick it down. Well, I can't kick it down anymore because I don't learn this. I'm going to break my leg. I got to dig and go around it or just climb it and go over it. And we as a people have always been resilient.
Mm-hmm.
We have always been resilient, and we will always be resilient. They aren't going to get us down.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 more years of this? I don't want it. But hopefully 4 more years of this. Now, I guess the only thing we can do, and I'm thinking, an amendment changed everything so, and that was when Roosevelt was president, so that presidents would only have 2 terms. Please don't let these Republicans get in there and say he can be in there 3 or 4 terms. Because
it's true. However, like if we're thinking that under any circumstance, like this person we're talking about is just going to like abide by the rules, like his whole presidency has been defined by not abiding by the rules. But I'm gonna like not go down that pathway. We'll save that conversation for another day. And instead, I want to just make sure that I understood what you're saying, which is that you believe that this is temporary and that change is coming.
I believe it's temporary. I believe change is coming. And I believe the young people are the ones that's going to make it change. I don't know.
Can you say that part again where you tell the old people to listen to the young people just in case they miss
old
that?
Old people listen to young people. Young people listen to old people.
Yeah.
But old people listen to the young people regarding the education. Please remember, we are stewards of this earth.
Mm.
And the world, the earth is ours and everything. Now, especially those of you who believe in the Bible, it's in the Bible that we got to take care of this earth.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So how some people can say they believe in the Bible and then not, they just, but I guess they all pick and choose. But this is our earth and we are the stewards. Meaning, we got to take care of it.
I hear you.
So, taking care of the earth, education, medical care, and economic parity for everyone, not just a few, not just hoarding money, for rich people. And like now, some of these kids have gone to college, got so much in student loans. Some of them can't afford a car, and some of them can't even afford to go buy a house.
Mm-hmm. That's very common for my generation.
Come on. It might be common, but it's not right.
It's not right.
So, to that I say, I don't know who people need to vote for, not even going to determine who they need to vote for, not getting into that. But don't compromise your own self-interest to make somebody else look good or to say, well, I'm going to vote for XYZ because if I get rich, because in America you're rich, I wouldn't want nobody to tax my money. Come on, you ain't going to get rich. If you're not rich now, forget it. And the majority of us aren't rich now, so forget it. Do something that's going to help these young people and help yourself.
Yes. Word. Okay, I feel like that's a great note to end on. Our time is up for today. Thank you for joining us for our live web discussion. Thank you, Dr. Nan. We did not get any questions today, but that might be because we had some technical difficulties getting on. I'm sorry, y'all. But for folks who are watching the recording of this, please join us on Twitter and feel free to hashtag everything she knows. Join the conversation. Tell me what you think. I'm happy to respond. And next week, I'm going to be here at the same time, hopefully without the technical difficulties, with Carla Monteroso from Code 2040 and Yvonne Hutchinson from the Ready Set and Project Include, and we are going to be talking about responsible tech. So I'll see you next week. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you.